yours.
Okay, let's get started. This is the Master Plan Review Committee for Tuesday, February the 8th, year of 2022, 6 p.m. I want to call the meeting to order. Ms. Sandy, would you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sadler.
Here.
Ms. King.
Here.
Mr. Burns.
Here.
Mr. Ross Calvin Kinch.
Here.
That was your councilman named you that. He's here. Mr. Morrison.
Yeah.
Ms. Julie Dyson Norris.
Yes, here.
And Mr. Jason Inman.
Here.
Very good.
Very good.
Is that full
We
crew?
have a super
Fantastic.
majority. This is first time in a long time we have had everybody on the board here. We lost one when Miss Kayla Lockhart resigned several months ago, so her seat hadn't been backfilled by the parish president. So anyway, silence all your cell phones, if you would please. I want to recognize an honorable citizen in the audience tonight, our distinguished councilman from the far reaches of northeast
Do you have an
Livingston
agenda?
Parish,
Anyone?
the second largest council district, I think.
Yeah, we're in the first
Mr.
one.
Shane Mack. Glad to hear Mr. Shane.
Thank you for coming today, Shane.
Yes. I want to just bring, some of you haven't been coming to the meetings, and I wanted to bring y'all quickly up to speed as to why we're having this meetings and why we're asking for setbacks. Is three of us, Miss Julie and Mr. Jason Inman, we met with Secretary of DOTD, Mr. Sean Wilson, back in October. Had a very good meeting with him. With Senator Pope was there, and Tommy Martinez, who was the liaison for John Kennedy, and Mr. Eric Calavotti, Deputy Assistant Secretary, and Ms. Carol Betts Porter. She's over planning and programming for the state of Louisiana DOTD. Long discussion, but one of the things that Secretary Sean Wilson said in a meeting talking about some problems we had in St. Tammany Parish where people have built too close to the road, commercial establishments, and too many driveways side by side. And he asked us in Livingston Parish to stop doing that. And so we took that to heart, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create some setback ordinances with the parish and do some driveway stuff. A little bit later, I want to talk about some driveways. And Mr. Zeb, you're here. You might answer one of our questions tonight on the appraisals. Anyway, our old business is discussion of buffer setbacks on state and federal highways. Florida Boulevard is the only federal highway we're talking about. We're not talking about I-12. And that's where we asked them for the setbacks. In the literature that I handed out, Mr. Shane, I got some copies for you. You want one?
I can get it. Thanks.
This is a letter that I sent to Mr. Tracy Gerlin now several months ago. And the subject is building code setbacks recommended by the Master Plan Review Committee. Number one, and these ordinance changes affect setbacks for buildings and other structures that are adjacent to state and federal highways only. The I-12 interstate is not included. Number two is 30-foot side yard setbacks for residential and commercial buildings where the customer parking is facing the side of the building and not facing the highway. Number three is 30-foot backyard setbacks for residential and commercial buildings where the customer parking is facing the side of the building and not facing the highway. Then item four is a 55-foot front yard setback for residential and commercial buildings where the parking is in front facing the highway. Number five is a 10 by 20 safety turnaround apron shall be required in front of the residence. And two other things is no permanent structure above or below the ground shall be located within the setback buffer zone. The buffer setback zones may be used for parking underground, utilities, drainage, and green area, landscaping and planting and access. The building buffer setback shall apply to all mobile home parks, commercial developments, multifamily developments, subdivisions with improvements, subdivisions without improvements, minor subdivisions, and single-family residences. So what I'd like to do is the other, is go take item number 2 and give you an illustration of what we're talking about.
Mr. Gerald, can I ask you one quick question?
Sure.
Okay, so when you're talking about the setbacks, are you talking about setbacks from the road
From the
or
highway.
setbacks from the servitudes?
No, from the highway
Okay,
service,
so
from
from the
the highway
street.
line itself, DOT's property,
Okay,
to the side of the building, 30-foot setback.
okay,
I don't know, in the end, we might call it a buffer zone, or, I don't know, but it's a buffer zone, or it could be a setback, whatever the ordinance committee wants to use. But that's an illustration, and some examples is there's several businesses on Florida Boulevard. C&M Chainsaw at the end of Juban Road is one of them. The state bought their property and paid them to reconfigure their storefront to the side. And parking is moved to the side. There's Riding Walker right in front of the old bookseller. There's a garage there that the doors are to the side, and that's where the storefront is at. Y'all got any questions about that? The reason why I included, I redrew this and I added storefront because Mr. Ross Kinchin had mentioned last meeting, he used the word storefront. I said, well, that's really what we should be using, the storefront, so people can identify with the storefront. Number 3 is the rear buffer setback. Some examples is if you're coming out of Denham Springs on Florida Boulevard to the north, they got a little RV park there, mobile home park, and they're all backed up to the highway, and right past that is some mini-storage buildings, and they're all backed up to the highway. So the storefront is so those businesses are around the other side, away from the highway, the rear of the building. So I just wanted to do that to kind of differentiate rear and side, so you would know, and that's what's out there. And any questions about it? Derek, you got it?
I got it,
Yeah,
yeah.
you got it? All right,
you're okay with it?
you got
I'm
it?
just listening first.
Okay, he's got his illustrations over here.
Okay.
So the
Yeah, I was
reason,
looking at his, I'm like,
the reason
Oh.
I want to bring it up to you is because this is
Okay.
very important, because you do,
No, it
you
is.
do, so you do appraisals?
right.
So is the wording, I know you and Ross, is the wording correct as far as the setbacks?
I don't know. We'll let
Side
you-
yard? Go ahead, Mr. Jason.
No, I was saying, I don't know if we're gonna nail down the wording, maybe the ordinance
Right, the
committee would have
ordinance
to do that.
committee
with
would.
some-
Right.
but-
Well, I don't know if y'all want to, I don't know if we can defer to the ordinance committee and I think, Ms. Sandy,
Yes, sir.
explain the flow of what we're requesting the ordinance committee to do. Once we go to the ordinance committee meeting and present this next Thursday at 4:30, we will present this, and they will take it, do what they're gonna do and
They'll
change
just-
verbiage or whatever, I don't know.
Review it.
And then it'll go to you, and you check it for what?
I'll put it in ordinance form as per the
Ordinance
order
form.
says, and, with the introduction and the body and all that, and then, it could be sponsored by the ordinance committee to be put on the next council agenda for February 24th. If everybody's good to go with it.
It might be a while before we're ready for that. But anyway, the flow is to you. Now, at what point does it go to the parish attorney for legality?
When I finish doing what I gotta do to it, I send it to our two attorneys, Mr. Brad Cassio and Mr. Chris Moody. And I ask them to review it to make sure that it's up to legal standards, and either they make notes or they say it's good to go.
And then it comes back, and then it goes to the council. So it might be a while yet before we're ready for all that, but we're working on it, huh?
Hey, Mr. Gerald,
I'm
does
sorry.
this, we had a guy, not the last planning commission, but the one before in Albany, the storage facility, and we had to deny that guy, and it was a setback issue. And does this answer that for him, or does this solve
Well,
that, or?
If you look at, I gave you a sheet that,
Yeah.
it's setback, it's buffer, it's called building lines.
Right,
The
that
thing-
was one of the questions.
The thing there is that, we went over that, you haven't, but, you have a copy of it? No.
Which one? This
Yeah.
yeah, I have that.
The problem there, Mr. Derrick, is that ordinance is pulled out of the subdivision ordinance, okay?
Right,
And it applies to subdivisions with improvements, the big ones, and subdivisions without improvements and minor subdivisions. Most of the subdivisions without improvements and minor subdivisions only appear, most of them appear on public roads, either parish or state.
right,
That is not appropriate for state roads and even parish roads.
yeah,
Getting that, and I don't blame nobody, that's all the planning department has to go by, and all the developer has to go by. He doesn't have any other ordinances to address
yeah,
state roads, and that's all we talk about is state and federal roads, okay?
yeah,
So there is no ordinance out there to address building on state roads, and that's what we're trying to come up with.
yeah. Okay.
But,
That was-
that ordinance there is not appropriate for.
Yeah. Well, I think he was on a
even
state
him
and a
and
parish road, yeah, yes, okay,
That's
yeah,
my opinion.
okay.
Did- Yeah. Did I miss when you really explained why they're doing this? I know you talked about whenever you met with Sean Wilson, and you were saying about the things, but I didn't hear you go all the way to the end. Did you? Did he say it?
man.
Did he say it to y'all?
Is it
About
about-
what it's about?
Is it about future infrastructure growth and being able to widen? and
Yes,
work?
being able to
Well,
widen the
yeah.
road without having to buy the commercial buildings
Yeah,
and
it was
businesses.
about the thing, some other stuff that we had, Mr. Tommy Martinez, who used to be a liaison with DOTD, and now he's a liaison with Senator John Kennedy. It's, when state has to go in and buy buildings, they can't put that money on building roads. It goes to servitude. Now, they use an example, Mr. Tommy did here a couple of weeks ago, that Perkins Road, which was completed, Julie, about 7 years ago, give or take. I know we sold the money to do juvenile interchange, and then they got it back. Well, the state spent $30 million buying buildings and right-of-way acquisition and $25 million on the actual road construction. So it's out of hand. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do is to stop the bleeding. We can't do anything about what's already built, but in the future going forward, and that's why we're trying to do that, is to not have to spend so much money on buying buildings. And did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gerald, can I ask a question? Did we ever confirm what the cities along, like with Denham Springs, Walker, maybe Livingston, what are their ordinances as it relates to this?
We haven't even approached them yet, Mr. Jason. Our thought was that we would try to get the parish to create setback ordinances on state highways. And once we get that done, Mr. Eric Calavoda said in our last meeting that if Livingston Parish can get some setback ordinances, which they all want us to do that, that it would become a template for the whole state of Louisiana, all other 63 parishes. But we don't know, but if we are successful in getting these ordinances passed, then we would go to Dillon Springs and Walker and Livingston and Albany is really bad. I don't know how in the world they'd ever widen that road in Albany. And then see, I noticed in Walker, since we've been meeting, now they put in, look like 2 RV storage buildings or something right across from the subway.
Yeah.
I mean, that just happened, and it's right on the line.
And when you all had your last meeting with DOTD, wasn't an example brought up that a project wasn't even able to be built?
Wasn't enough money.
There wasn't
Yeah.
enough money. What was that story, Mr. Kenny?
It was, wherever it was, the right-of-way acquisition was more than the road and more than the budget. So
Yeah.
it wasn't room to build a road and acquire the property, both.
So that's kind of the issue, is that, you know, when push comes to shove, if it's costing too much, you know, you're not going to have the opportunity to move forward.
Right, money's being diverted to buying buildings and instead of constructing highways. So we have a golden opportunity to do something about it if we're successful. The last one, well, not the next one is item number 4, which is proposed 55-foot storefront buffer setback on where the storefront is facing the highway and customer parking is facing the highway. And that's kind of, if you stop and think 55 feet, well, that sounds like a lot, but the first 30 feet is the buffer zone. The next 25 feet is to leave the business viable. If they can have 25 feet remaining, then they're a viable business and they can still use their storefront and they still got customer parking. And DOTD does not have to buy that building or reconfigure it like they did C&M Chainsaw. So that's a savings to the taxpayer. So that's why we need 55 feet on commercial. Y'all do y'all understand that? Everybody?
It's kind of like the Dollar General stores,
Ma'am?
the Dollar General stores. I mean, that
Well,
that
Dollar-
example is
yeah.
like the Dollar General store, yeah.
Dollar General appears to be setting their buildings way back, so anticipating highway widening. So that's a good thing.
Yep.
The other one, the last one is item number 5.
God bless you.
Actually, it's number 4 and 5. We wrestled with this one.
Joe, I got
Go ahead.
a statement about that. Lot sizes, you know, if your drawing here is over in the neighbor's yard, but if we do a J drive where we come in and turn into the carport rather than going like straight into the carport, and that you can do your 30-foot setback and still have your way to get your car out and head it out.
Well, the whole purpose is that's 55 feet also, and 30 feet for right-of-way buffer zone setback, and an additional 25 feet to, if the highway takes 30 feet, you still have a viable front door, okay, in the house. But there's so many, you're right, there's so many variables on the way houses are built nowadays, and parking.
And you take a 120-foot lot. That's like we said the other day, you take 55 foot away from a 100-foot lot.
Well,
Plus the servitude in the back, yeah.
Right.
Well, it might be
But,
the 100, I'm sorry.
no, that's okay. I mean, I was just gonna say, but just remember that these are only residences that are on state highways or major highways. So it's not a subdivision rule, it's not a parish road, it's not any of those that have these smaller lots. It's gonna be only on residents that are gonna be on state highways
Right.
that have the possibility of expanding.
Which it will definitely affect the marketability of those lots. for those
It takes-
pieces of property.
Right.
Because you're not,
Because you're
they're
taking
not
off
as
that.
marketable to as many people any longer, and then if it's gonna be sold as a residence, most likely it's the highest and best use isn't for commercial, because there's not an applicable, economically feasible business that can be built on that section and utilize it the way a residence could be, so.
Well, the first 30 feet is for setback for right-of-way acquisitions to widen state highways, okay? The other 25 foot is to make the house front viable, but every house is a little different. In the last week, I've taken the liberty, my wife driving the vehicle, is going up and down every state highway north of I-12. And I rode through all your district yesterday. I've been down on 441, 442, 1036, way up in there. I didn't know they had all them roads up there, man.
Mr.
But-
Gerald, what Jeb was asking about, wasn't there some conversation about some project recently that they did do the commercial in the front and then the residential behind it? Didn't we have some conversation about that recently?
You had mentioned on the, there was a subdivision at the end of Jupiter Road, maybe to the left, where they had the front setback by the side road in the subdivision, but they were very close to the state highway because that was their side yard. So technically, they were allowed to build closer to that state highway.
5 foot, whatever.
It was like a 5 or 7 foot setback because they were on the corner lot. They adhered to the setback to the road that they were fronting, and then they had the 7 foot side yard, which just so happened to be on that state highway. So you had talked about those buildings being very close to the actual road itself.
Well, I remember talking about that, and they were using this ordinance here, subdivision ordinance on 7 foot setback on the side of State Highway, Florida Boulevard. If you go over down the gate of Millwork, look across the street.
That's what it is.
There's 2 of them there that DOTD will have to buy eventually for $500,000, $600,000. Now, down the road down that way, they look like they're doing the same thing again down there across from the library on another subdivision.
So that certainly was part of the conversation that we had at our last meeting, that, let's say a developer wanted to do, or they wanted to do something like that. Obviously, they would have to, back it off 30 feet and then have their side yard. So right now, if they did it like that, and we had a conversation on whether that was even legal, really, because the side yard, something you said, that the frontage on the state or federal highway and the other road should have had the frontage setbacks on both roads.
But there's no setback on the state, on the state road, there's no setback. Is it? Is that what we're talking about now, isn't it?
Right. We're asking to add that in.
Technically, the building line, though, I don't think it's specific whether it's a parish or state road. I think they won't give you a permit to build if you say you're building within those setback lines. I may be wrong about as far as the different types of roads, but I know whenever we're doing our surveys, it doesn't really matter if it's a state or a parish road. The parish still wants that front setback at the 25 feet. And then, of course, depending on where they build.
Who does, the state or
The parish, the planning office,
what parish?
Livingston Parish.
25 feet?
Front. That's the
Front, yeah.
front.
I'm
But
saying,
see,
right
that's
now.
Yeah, I know they do, and that's the ordinance
Right.
that I've been alluded to. I gave you one last time. You need another one? That's talking about internally within a subdivision, but in the absence of an ordinance on adjacent on parish roads or state roads, there is no ordinance, so they haven't used that ordinance to interpolate something.
So that being said, Jeb, we're only talking about an additional 5 feet
Yeah.
over what's already there, which is 25
Well,
if it's a
let me tell you,
frontage.
when you get into residence, when I looked at all these houses and all these roads, what jumped out at me was I found 69 spec built houses by developers on 1019, 1024, 1025, and Lockhart Road, and about half of them had an apron, T-turnaround apron in the yard, and the other half did not. And I don't know why they did that. But that's what I found. Now, most of them appear to be back about 55 feet from the state highway. But if you go up on 1024 and places like that, and you got bigger lots, people don't use their front door. They use the back door. And every one of those, as you look at the larger lots, has a turnaround apron in the back. So that wouldn't apply here. So there's just so many different scenarios, okay? You can't just say one of them is what you put your finger on, but the whole purpose of the thing is to prevent people from having to back out on a busy state highway. And I guess what comes to mind is, how in the world, and you're all seasoned drivers here, and most of you have children and grandchildren. Me, I got great-grandchildren, you know, and they're about to learn to drive, is to force them to back out on a busy state highway, traffic doing 50, 60 miles an hour, sometimes in the dark, in the rain, in the fog. How do you do that safely? You cannot. No one can do that.
Sure.
So that's why we want the T-turnaround. It's a safety issue. Now, I was told the other day that it was a state law, and I ain't found it yet.
I tell you, it's a state law that you're not supposed to back out on a state highway.
Do you know where that law is at, or which one it
It's on
is?
law books, I mean, whatever, you know, I mean, it's,
I'm just
if
asking.
you back out in the road and somebody hits you, and
Well, just stop and think about that. How do you do that? You can't do that safely. So I guess our group has to be good stewards of safety in the parish, and when you write ordinances, and we understand that. So if half of the developers are doing it and half are not, then I think, now, I talked to two engineers before the planning commission meeting the other night, and I approached them about that T-turnaround. They thought it was an excellent idea to turn around in your yard and not have to back out on the highway.
but I think the ones like up on Cuban Road, on Buddy Ellis Road, those houses have been there a long time. I don't think
They
they're
have
building
not.
anything.
They've only been there about 2 years.
Longer than that, because I built 3 right there about 3 or 4 years ago.
Well,
and they were
I think
all-
it was there's 29 of them, I counted them. And they're 25 feet from Buddy Ellis. There's no T-turnaround.
Right, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And that was part of that subdivision that was right behind there. But they used the 25-foot rule, which applies to internally in the subdivision to approach a busy parish road.
But I believe it, like I say, I believe it's a state law that
Well,
you're not supposed to.
anyway, back to the T-turnaround, it's a safety issue, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's a state law. I was told Sunday there was, but I don't know. We'll have to research that and see. Now, I got a question to you. Developer friend of mine, and we're all friends with developers, aren't we? I am. And he built 2 houses side by side, and the state, for him to get the permit for the driveway, and Julie heard this and Sean Wilson, stopped building separate driveways. And he could not get his DOTD permit until he put both houses come out on the same driveway. So he got his permit. Then he went to sell his house. You're an appraiser. He went to sell his house, and they come in $10,000 less on appraisal because both driveways were settled. Both driveways were together. What about that?
I'd like to see that appraisal, because I'd like to see where he did an
you know
extraction and
anything
found a
about that?
$10,000 deduction on however that configuration was, because it still splits the property line, correct?
Well,
That's why I'd have to see the appraisal, because
You don't know anything
when I
about
hear
it?
about it, I'm like, it doesn't sound right, like something doesn't add up, because like as an appraiser, I have to extract market data for me to justify any kind of adjustment that I make.
well, let me ask you something. Is that a rogue appraiser?
Without seeing this report, like I have buddies that have told me things 100 times, I'm like, send me your appraisal. And I look at them like, dude, that's not what they said at all. You know? So I'm very hesitant to jump and say, oh yeah, rogue appraiser, kill him. I would have to say, let me see the data. You know, let me see what his report says and his narration of what adjustments he made. He may have made an adjustment on the lot, not necessarily the driveway.
You do on driveway.
Well, we don't have a driveway line, unless he wrote in driveway and then made an adjustment, that doesn't exist there on our form. It says 2-car garage, 2-car carport, whatever, it does not say driveway. And you could have went to the cost approach and then maybe deducted it out the cost approach, but again, I would have to see it because it doesn't add up to
He had to physically separate the driveways, physically to get the appraisal up.
that doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know.
So I would have to see it. Show me the Carfax.
I can show you the driveways.
I believe you about the
But
driveway.
Julie,
but I would have to
isn't that
see
what you
the-
got out of
Appraisal,
the meeting
but
that
they
I
did
don't-
this-
they
yeah,
won't?
They didn't make, it doesn't make sense.
Just like you said,
I'd have to see.
there's so many
People
reasons.
just don't
I don't make
understand it.
adjustments like that.
Yeah.
One example that was given to us was, I don't know if it was at Burbank or Nicholson Extension or somewhere out on, by LSU, where they extended those roads. And out from there, the traffic has ended up, it was to help traffic that the roads, but of course the developments came. And that's what we have to remember. In doing this, the developments are gonna come, if we're able to have our infrastructure, our roads effectively working. So anyway, the discussion was said that, after you widen the road, all the developments, subdivisions and such as that then are built, and then there's a whole lot more traffic on those roads than were there before. But if they're set back far enough, again, you still have, or within the 30 feet, you have the ability, even though the new subdivisions are being built, they don't use that first lot, let's say, then the road can still be widened and.
There was something my developer friend said that we was talking about the aprons. He put the aprons in on 2 of the houses, and he said he was told that it was a state law that he had to do that to prevent people from backing out on the state highway. But he thought it was a good idea that, I just asked him, what do you think about it? I think it's a good idea, and another thing, it doubles as temporary parking for somebody to come visit. He thought it was a great idea. It was a good selling point to sell his houses. I guess my point is, out of 69 houses that I looked at, half of them had the apron, half didn't. They all sitting back off the road. Some developers are doing it, some are not. There's so many variables. If you got a bigger lot, you can put your apron in the back, but as you go up and down these roads, they all got their turnaround apron in the back. Up and down 1024 and 449 and all of them. But those other ones over there are primarily spec houses by developers. So I seen one that was 19 in a row, that driveway went all the way back and wide. It was for 2 parking spots, but they could have easily done a turnaround and achieved the same goal.
Gerald, obviously, the conversation at this point is about the safety turnarounds. I would like to ask the committee, how they feel at this point about items 2, 3, and 4, as opposed to jumping down to item 5.
I already have.
I wasn't sure that,
I asked if anybody had any comments. Did I? Y'all had any comments about it? I thought I did.
We had such lengthy discussion last month. so
right, we did.
It was good.
We did.
We had very good discussion last month, I
Right,
thought.
we did. I agree.
So we've kind of hashed out so
Okay,
many
I
things.
just-
I don't know if Mr. Kenny has been happy about any of
I'm
it, but
wondering what we're doing here tonight. I thought we had all this.
Well, we changed, let me explain why we're here. This is our last meeting before we go to the ordinance committee, okay, and this
just want to
Thursday
make sure
night.
our ducks are in a row.
And
Right.
everything that I give you tonight that we will present to the ordinance committee, all the illustrations on back and rear and all that stuff, so they'll understand. And we changed it to storefront instead of just front, okay? to simplify it. But we haven't talked about prior tonight about the turnaround apron safety. So we have not talked about that.
Right.
So that's brand new, okay? And we got several members here tonight that hadn't been here for a while. They've been politicking
Traveling
or whatever. Huh?
Staying
Derek does a
busy,
lot.
staying busy.
Mr. Jarrett, would you want to specifically address the double road frontage corner lot situation if there is a lot on 2 state highways? At that point, would you then need to treat both as the same? Or let's say they're fronting this highway, but they're also on this highway. So if the parking is in the front, then they'll be 55 feet off. But technically their parking's out on the side, so then would they do what the parish would require, which would be the 7-foot setback on the other road? Or would you want the verbiage to specifically state on these corner lots?
I would ask the question, the corner lots on 2 different roads, what kind of roads are they? Are they state roads or parish roads?
State
or-
roads. Just since we are leaning more towards the state.
If it, I guess, my answer would be if any of the front or the side face a state road, it's gonna be either 30 feet for the side or 55 for the front. But if the other side is subdivision streets, then that's 25 feet, you see, or parish road, which we ain't even discussing on that.
Well, and so in that vein, one of the things that bothers me about 2 and 3 is that we're saying 30-foot side yard setbacks where the customer parking is facing the side of the building and not facing the highway. Would that side yard setback, would it be applicable to the neighbor?
What's the neighbor have?
The adjacent property? By saying it like that, does it, a side yard and a rear yard, does that mean no matter where the side, what the side and rear
I think the way it's
attach?
worded now, because before it was very vague, and then if you would have to do the side yard and the building, but now it's specific on, depending on where your parking's facing. But even with the way it's worded, if you have the 2 state highways, the parking's facing the highway, the building front is over here, there's absolutely nothing on this side of the building, so you really can't make them do the 30-foot side yard because the customer parking is not facing, or maybe so.
Well, that scenario would only appear where you got 2 state highways
Yeah.
intersection. That's it, that's the only
So-
scenario.
I'd like to read this to you and tell me what you all think. Any and all residential or commercial properties adjacent to a state or federal road shall have setbacks for safety and expansion. The setbacks shall be as follows. Any property or building having a side or rear exposure that is adjacent to a state or federal roadway shall be no less than 30 feet from the state or federal roadway. Additionally, any property or building shall have no less than a 55-foot setback if any entrance faces the state or federal highway.
Any entrance,
Any entrance meaning that you, sometimes carports are at a back entrance. I mean, you could have an entrance on 2 sides of a building. I think this building has entrance on more than one
so
side.
where would the front door be, emergency
Well, that's
exit?
my point. Where's the front of a building that
Well,
has
it's
more than
back-
one entrance?
It's back to building line, which is in the existing subdivision ordinance now. The building line is whatever is first. If it's a carport or it's a kitchen or whatever, okay, or the garage, whatever is closest to the highway, that would be the building line, okay? You agree with Mr. Ross? You shaking your head, yeah?
But is that the front, the side, or the rear?
Well, it probably don't matter if it's, there's so many different scenarios.
Okay, Sandy has some
I
input.
was told by Ms. CD bill at, that
Yeah.
the door, your front door, whatever road it faces, that's the front of your property.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what y'all were talking about?
That's the way I see it.
Yeah.
That's what,
And if the
Well,
front
it
door
has
is
to be.
facing the side of the property, not the road, then it's the side becoming
Correct.
the front. Okay.
But I think in your example about the corner with the state highway, we still have to have a setback on the side, because if that, what if
Yeah.
that's
What if
the
that
highway
road
that gets
gets-
expanded, not the one that
Yes.
the building is
That's my
facing?
point, is we have to make sure it's covered, no matter if they face.
And I think her write-up basically covers that. Her verbiage kind of addresses that.
well, if you run across a situation like that, then the front would be 55 and the side would be 30. We're only talking about the buffer zone to expand the highway.
That's right,
That's all
yeah.
we're talking
That's
about.
right.
And how you get there is, you got that? You understand? You bring up some good stuff, Mr. Raw. You keep us honest here.
Hey, that's what I'm here for.
Well, and again, remembering that the purpose is for safety and expansion.
Right.
Expansion of the road and safety, and also utility relocation. And when we
That's
go
cool.
before the ordinance committee, we're gonna talk about that too. We'll add that, okay? Utility relocation. There's something that you brought up. Are we through talking about 4 and 5? You got any?
Five is, the only thing that I'm curious about, I heard y'all talking about it, is that, you know, I kind of always draw up when I hear we have to keep everybody safe from themselves. You know, the safety aspect of nobody needs to do this, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. I mean, if the last 2 years haven't shown you that we have to be safe from ourselves and the government or some entity tell us what's best for us, I'm not for that. Now, I understand, yes, it is a good idea, absolutely. But then you also, as far as real estate is concerned, for me, whenever I appraise a piece of property, I'm looking at the utility of the property. Utility doesn't mean power, water, sewer that's going into that property. It means the use of the property. So anytime that I look at it, like when I hear, I got a corner lot, I got the biggest lot in the neighborhood, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, you actually have less utility than the rest of these lots next to you. Because you have building setbacks and all this crap all the way around, servitudes, for all these other things. So everybody else may have a quarter of an acre, but you have probably 0.18 of utility that you can build on, that you can actually use, freely use. Not go mow your grass and walk around, let you go throw the ball in. What you actually have domain over your own piece of property is less than your neighbor right next to you, right one lot off the corner. His has more utility, his has more value. Well, I don't know, that doesn't make any sense, mine's bigger. Sorry. You know, we're gonna end up running into that on some major highways where they intersect as well, where we're gonna be killing the utility and potential marketability for commercial use on a piece of property as well. And we just need to be aware that we're going to face that, because you may have someone that, you know, is not an older man that said, I'm gonna sell this and retire one day. Well, all these new orders come in, and now we're gonna cut his property in half by value because of utility and marketability and use. So we're gonna have to just remember that. And then as far as the turnaround, I'm hesitant when I hear someone say that we have to do it for the safety, for your own good, because you're not smart enough and you don't know well enough to not do this. And besides that, construction costs has also went up exponentially. It's like some of them have aprons, some of them don't. That's because freaking costs have tripled in the last 2 years too. So if they were built 3 years ago versus this last year, those probably do have turnarounds, and these probably don't, because the builder's going, whew, that's a lot of more concrete and wood and stuff that I gotta put in right
But
I
Jeff,
understand.
but Jeff, when you talk about marketability, if it's a busy highway and you have a house and one has a turnaround and one doesn't, the one that has a turnaround is more marketable.
That's right.
From a safety
Sure,
standpoint,
but
it'd
that
be,
doesn't translate directly into value right away.
I mean, you just said
I think it does.
marketability. I'm just saying,
Marketability and value are two different things.
right. But the
Well-
marketability does help determine the value,
Right,
doesn't
and
it?
are we gonna dictate to how we're gonna make you, as a business owner, run your business? Or just?
I don't see that
I
from
just-
requiring a turnaround on the state highway. I'm just saying, like, I can see both sides of it,
you're
but I
gonna-
can see
Okay,
that.
so even if you don't build it, the person that owns the property, that wants to sell the property, is
Right.
going to limit their marketability of their property. Because now you're reducing the amount of developers that are actually gonna go in, because they care about one thing, and that's density. The same thing on, like you're speaking about the Alvarez development. They purchased that property because they knew they had at least 2 more moneymakers right there based on what our current guidelines were whenever they decided to buy and develop that property. When they did their due diligence period and they ran it through and went through the permitting process and figured that out with their engineers and everyone else, they knew their bottom line, what it could be. Now, if that wasn't there, then I guarantee you that would have changed what that final negotiating price was then.
And
it's-
I think
I'm
that's-
hesitant to hear that we just expanded. The developers are coming. I
Well,
can assure you they're
I
not. They can go elsewhere and develop as well.
Jim, you are spot on, and that is the conversation that we had some of at our last meeting, and that is important to have. And I think that what we have to think about is, as government, what is the responsibility and not the overstep of government to provide for the majority of the people
I
in
believe
the
that
community?
there
Well,
is-
let me
sure, go ahead.
finish, because my point is that you're absolutely right. If this ordinance is on the books, then moving forward, it doesn't affect anything that's already in existence. But moving forward, it would be a consideration as to what the best use of that property would be. And if you do have a developer looking at a piece of property, then he's lost some of that. If he has to put a turnaround in those first 2 lots, let's say it's a single in, or what, maybe it's a corner lot, maybe it's just that one lot, or the other corner. Those 2 properties would have to have an adjustment made. The rest of them, they don't. So you're absolutely right. But I don't think there's a reason not to do it for what it provides down the road as far as the potential. Even this development that's happening across from the library in Denham Springs, that subdivision had to put in the turning lane off of the state highway, off of Florida Boulevard. I don't know how much that cost them, but if,
A lot.
right, if that maybe were set back and they weren't, I mean, I don't know. What,
They did it for safety reasons.
That's what I know.
And they're requiring that on all state highways and all major developments for safety, so one can get over and not block traffic behind you, but safely turn left or right. I don't like government intrusion in my life either, but I'm really adamant about this. In the planning commission, I pushed for that for years. And if you go down Lockhart, right before you get to Dunn, on the right-hand side, there's 16 little houses in a row that have a turnaround apron. Now, in the planning commission, that was like 5 years ago, me and one other commissioner asked the developer to do that so they wouldn't have to back out on that busy highway and safely, and the developer said, sure. And they did, and it's there because we asked him to do that. It's a marketing thing. To me, I'd rather buy a house with an apron, a turnaround, and then not have to back out on a busy highway. I don't care what age you are, whether you're 16 or
Well, don't think the developer didn't eat that
But let me
cost.
tell you
Yes,
something.
He passed
yes,
that cost
he did.
along to the
But
purchase.
it
That's
doesn't
right.
matter about cost. I'm telling you,
That's
it's a
right.
safety issue.
Oh, it
And I have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren that drive. I don't want them backing out on a busy state highway in the middle of the night, and rain in the fog, people driving 60 miles an hour. That is an accident, bad one, waiting to happen for anybody that is forced to do that. Now, if you build a house out in the country on 2 acres, you can put your turnaround in the back. But if you live somewhere else and this is a spec-built house, and a developer friend of ours doesn't do it, I don't know why, save money or whatever, I don't know, but I guarantee you, they would all do it if you asked them to do it. And they wouldn't fight you over that.
Okay. I praise them every day, you tell me.
yeah,
Well,
well, that's a
And
good.
as far as you say
Okay.
force, no one's forcing you to buy a
Well,
house.
say that.
I just point blank think that anybody should force people to back out on a state highway.
Well, you're not forcing.
You have to, if
someone
you don't
to
put
do
a
it.
T turnaround
If
apron, you're forcing them back.
This
No, because you didn't get forced to buy the house.
Okay, now we get.
Mr.
okay,
Kenny,
okay.
And you asked me one question about what is government's role in that? Government's role is to protect the free enterprise and free market and to let it dictate it for itself. What is left of that, the free market works the best when
Does
you're left
anybody else
alone and
have
not
any,
thinking that the average individual isn't smart enough to figure this out.
I agree with you 100%. But I think in this instance, we are looking at the opportunity for growth and preparing and planning for future development. And if, look at the roundabouts. You know, they take up a lot of corners there. So, and they're wanting to do them everywhere to make traffic flow. So, you know, if you've got that right of way there, you can go in and put a roundabout.
And Julia, they'll tell you that DOTD, that's a safety issue. There's more wrecks in an
Well, that's true,
intersection
too.
is on roundabouts.
That's true.
If you have a wreck
Not
and the
fatal
roundabout
wrecks.
is not as bad because you're
They
going a
say
lot
that,
slower,
too.
and they'll tell you that every time.
Well, you know, Mr. Kenny wanted to say something
I'm
about.
sorry, Mr. Kenny.
I would say, okay, this guy's got a turn, he's gonna back out of his driveway. We're not worried that if he's crazy enough to back out of his driveway and get hit, that's one
What if
thing.
it
But
was your
listen,
goal?
Wait, Gerald,
let
listen
me
what he's
finish.
saying.
I understand you.
No.
What if I'm the guy driving down the road and hit him? What about me?
I understand what you're saying.
Huh?
Now, you take a parish road, traffic is much slower. Like on Buddy Ellis Road, it's a lot slower. It doesn't affect you much, but on these state highways, they drive it extremely fast. Okay, it's a different scenario altogether.
But Mr. Kenny is saying that not only is the person backing out on a state highway in danger, but the person that is going down the state highway that is coming up, that happens to be the person that hits that person that didn't see them, that person could be killed or injured or whatever.
Yeah,
And
I'm
that is concerning.
If that's what you was meaning to say,
That's
I
what it was.
That was my statement.
I apologize.
But
I
kept
thought you were going
interrupting me,
in.
and I didn't say what I wanted to.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll tell you what happened.
I thought you were arguing both sides of the point, Mr. Gerald.
And you are absolutely correct. I was going down 1024 or 1025. They reversed north and south. It would be Arnold Road. That would be 1025.
Yeah.
And I'm traveling through. All of a sudden, somebody backs out in front of me. I don't know why they did, but they did, and I had to hit my brakes, okay? So that's your point.
There you go. See,
That's a good point, Mr. Kenny. I thought you were sleeping.
Well, and the other reality is, as Jeff, you know, is basically saying, even though you have the option to turn around and go out forward, doesn't mean you will.
Right.
Well, I'm just saying the free market.
I understand.
If people are not willing to buy those also, you're kind of like saying, okay, yeah, that's it. But then where does it stop? I'm just throwing it out there. I'm definitely in for widening and for infrastructure and for future growth because that's why we're here. And it should have been done 50 years ago.
That's right.
Before all this.
That's right.
But the thing is, if you go off the guise of safety, it never stops. Because then they could say, you know what? Now we're going to have to add 2 more feet of metal because now we've done all these studies that if we have a 2-foot truss around your whole vehicle, we've reduced the fatality rate by 20%. Now we're going to add that cost just for you to drive.
So
And then
would
it
you
just-
be
it just
more
doesn't
comfortable,
stop.
obviously the verbiage that Gerald has here does not say anything about safety or expansion. So we can leave that out.
No, we're gonna put it in. I mean, let me just say, this is a rough draft.
Yeah.
Talking
This is going to
points.
this is going to the ordinance committee and
To
they will
get
have
where
to
we want to
decide.
go. Now,
Right.
I'm gonna tell you, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm gonna change this for when we go before the ordinance committee, and our friend back there that's gonna help us, you know, get these ordinances through the council, he'll have something new, okay? So, this is just a rough draft. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
not
living
our,
document, it's not something that.
Right. it's-
we don't have any
to fix
power
it.
to do it
Right.
or not do it.
Right.
So
No,
it's got to go
we
to
have to,
council.
we have to do our due diligence to bring it to them so
Right.
they can understand what we're trying to do. And it's about widening roads, back to square one. That's all we're
On
trying to
number
do.
5, we can, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be in front of the resident. It just has to be a safety a
It has to be
turnaround
somewhere on their lot.
on the property.
And
yeah, the ability.
you'll travel up down these roads, country roads, and there's always a turnaround in everybody's yard. I don't care if it's a mobile home or,
So Gerald,
big
turn in the
house,
yard.
they're there. They always got
Yeah.
turnarounds in their
so
yard.
Gerald, Derek is saying on line 5, you would delete the word front.
Yeah. Just say on the residence, but,
Now, where would you put it up? What would you say, Mr. Derek?
well, they could
Anywhere?
put the turnaround, if they put it in the back, like if the driveway went up the side and they had the ability to turn in the back, or just as long as there's a turnaround somewhere so they don't have to back out on the road.
So what language you use? On the?
Just
on
the
road,
property.
Anywhere?
Or you could put
on
on
the
site,
property.
or, yeah.
On site.
On site?
On site,
Residence
yeah.
or private.
Yes,
Anywhere on
yes,
site?
That's what-
yes,
if I was in
Yeah.
residence house,
Yes,
whatever it is,
yes.
you know.
Tell them that too. And that would resolve that.
I say Gerald, a J drive, we use that just
Show 'em
about
how
all
that
the time.
works.
Come in the side, back up and go out. You know what I'm
The
talking
J
about?
drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's somewhere.
Yeah.
And like I say, when these experts on the ordinance committee get it, you know, they'll figure it out, and
These experts.
they're good at that.
That's right.
Okay, and so basically, it would be a 10 by 20 safety turnaround apron shall be required on the property,
Somewhere,
or just a-
Is it
somewhere.
on site?
on site.
I would say
I'm
just-
taking his like anywhere on
We
the
use,
property,
yeah, a lot of times in our
Anywhere
appraisals
on-
and stuff, we put.
I don't think.
On
On
property?
subject property,
anywhere.
on subject property, that's what we generally
I
write.
think it's size.
Mr.
And they
Gerald.
might come up
For
with
any
different
improvements
words.
that we put on there.
Okay, Mr. Kenny was saying, should we delete the size and let that,
Yes.
As long as it's a
Yes,
turnaround.
as long as it's a
I
turnaround.
mean, you don't really need to.
All right, say that again, Mr. Kenny?
Okay, we need a turnaround, we don't care how big it is.
You just
Okay,
need to
we're
a
not-
place for
we
the
don't need
turnaround.
Appropriate,
Appropriate way to turn
Appropriate.
around.
Well, the residence, if it's facing the side, the turnaround is in front, like, I'm gonna tell you, the two houses across from Gator Millworks. The side of the house faces 190.
Yeah.
The entrance is facing that new road that goes back to the subdivision, okay? That's where their turnaround is at. They on a small street with low traffic, they can back out. I mean, that's okay, it's safely.
Yeah, but what I'm
Is that
saying,
what
I wouldn't limit it to size, you know, just appropriate.
Well, the side
turnaround.
needs to still be 30 feet.
size, he said size.
Size of the
Size of,
turnaround.
I wouldn't specify.
I don't know, I just put that in there as a talking point, really.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
gonna say, yeah.
I mean, I
What
don't
we
know, I
talking
mean, my truck is 6 foot
talking
wide,
about it.
21 feet long, but, you know, your car might be 5 feet wide and 10 foot long, I don't know. But something that
Appropriate.
they can, something of, I think a minimum size, or maybe not, I don't know.
No.
Okay,
No.
so if it says, and,
As long as they can turn around.
I've seen these also whenever they have their front, like little carport area or whatever, where they come in and this would
That's
never
what they
measure
say.
10 by 20 or whatever, but it's just like that little apron does that, and that is all
That
all
was-
day long. So we don't need to, what I'm saying is we don't need a 10 by.
We don't need
You
a
don't
10
need to
by
put
20.
you don't
We
need to put a size on it.
It's not the size of the apron, it's a turnaround of some type, shape, or
It's
fashion.
adequate.
Yeah.
just,
Okay.
maybe just put a
Oh.
turnaround apron.
Yard, is it?
And then,
There you go.
Turn around.
yeah, a turnaround apron on
So
site.
you got a,
Okay.
so, a safety turnaround apron shall be required on all properties?
That, on a state
No.
road.
Residential, or, yeah, properties.
Yeah, my question is, should it not,
well,
should
on
we take off
all
residents?
residents,
Probably all properties,
I think
whether
it
it's
should-
commercial or
Right,
residential.
right, that's my
yeah.
point. That's
Yeah,
my
you don't
point.
Anybody
well,
backing out
y'all
on
like
state
the
road.
word property, that's fine, I don't
There's so
care.
many.
I would,
Reg-
yeah,
Oh, no,
we put
properties.
on subject property, I mean, like, that's how we label everyone that goes.
On subject property?
On all
Yeah.
accesses.
On all properties, okay, that's good. Mr.
Adjacent
Inman
to
has
the
got to
highway,
leave, and I
adjacent.
got to say something before he leaves.
Adjacent to the highway? State or federal highway?
Do y'all have any,
Maybe we have that up.
Access.
I want to
the
say
highway.
something before he leaves too.
Access.
You
I
can't.
do,
It's
I do.
Access to the highway.
I just want to say that I'm really proud of this. I think this is a really good thing. I think on 190, it's almost too late. You know, you already have all these structures that are already there. But if you look at south on 63 where Epic Piping is. And, you know, there's a pretty good opportunity that that's going to be 4-laned or maybe 5-laned.
That's on our list.
And so if you know, we always say you're 20 years behind, you're 20 years behind, you're 20 years behind. So for once, yay, we're not going to be 20
You're
years
right,
behind.
okay? She's
We
right.
just need money to widen roads, huh?
She
Well,
was right.
you know, and it's an opportunity for us to say, okay, look, this is something that's going to happen in the future, and we're protecting that property, and, you know, so I think this is a good thing.
20 years from now, DOT will say, well, we can build a road here cheaper than we can build it there. So
That's,
we're gonna go to live
that's
in-
right.
that's the issue right there, and
you
that's
have
how
the
we got Juban
infrastructure.
Road.
Yeah.
Is that Perkins Road wasn't ready, we got Juban, so they move things ahead. If we
Yeah.
are prepared, then we'll get the roads done, because it'll cost half the price as it would somewhere else.
Our number one goal is to make roads, build new roads and widen existing roads and
So
kind
that
of
we can develop.
cut down on the cost of widening roads and put the money to building roads instead of buying buildings.
Right.
I got one more thing to say for Mr. Inman. He's got to go. Mr. Kinney,
Yes, sir.
I checked with the Society for Prevention to Cruelty to Animals, and I checked with the parish attorney. And he said it's okay to beat that dead horse a few more licks. As long as he's dead.
Well, okay, as long as you got to.
I couldn't pass that up.
I tell you, we beat him about 2 hours last night.
Our next meeting is moved to the third Tuesday, right, Miss Sandy? So our next meeting will be back to the third Tuesday, March the 15th. And then after that, hopefully we'll go back to the second Tuesday. Miss- Hopefully we'll own it from now on out, hopefully,
March what, Joe?
March the 15th. Now, let me say this, we're going to go before the ordinance committee meeting, 4:30, Thursday. I would like to have as many of you guys and ladies there, if you can, okay?
And what time is
When
it?
is that, what day?
It's at 4:30.
And it's the only thing on the agenda.
Oh,
Many
good.
of y'all can come and let them know there's more than this meeting.
And it's right here,
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right here.
What was the day?
Thursday, it's the 10th.
Thursday.
Is it the 10th, Sandy?
Correct. They're doing it Thursday.
Also, the chairman, Mr. Jeff Ard of the council, has authorized us to go back and give a presentation from the master plan committee, what we're doing every month. And he told me to get together with you on that, okay? So not this meeting, but the following, we'll do a short presentation on what we're doing, okay? To let all of them know what we're doing and what we have done in the last 4 or 5 months and all the meetings we've had. Hey, we've had a lot of meetings.
Would all be more on for sure.
I'm through. Y'all got anything else?
That's February, this Thursday.
The 10th.
Sorry, you said it's this Thursday, the 10th?
The 10th.
February yeah, that's this coming Thursday, yeah, 4:30.
Should be able to put signs.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely.
Mr. Kenny, y'all got anything to say?
No, I think we're okay, Joe. I think we're good.
Jason?
I have something that I want to bring up, but
Julie?
I think it's going to take some talking it through, but I think it should be a part of this. The second to last paragraph says no permanent structure within the setback or buffer zone. And my concern is for signs.
Yeah, I was
Well, I know you and I
hoping
have kind of conversed on that, but let me tell you my thoughts. I think it's important that we do that, but we've done so far along now with our presentation to the count. Can we defer that to next meeting?
If we,
Or we can-
if
we
we
can-
defer it to the next meeting, then the ordinance committee, I think that we should address it a little bit so that they can address it. We may not have an answer to it at this point, but I think it needs to be a part of their conversation.
Well, let's bring it up.
Is the sign considered permanent?
Is,
Is the sign considered a permanent structure?
Here's my thought. A sign is affordable it can, the highway can take it. That's not gonna cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
If
this-
associated with the business.
Right, but, and I don't think signs should be where they block visibility for safety and such as that. I think that's a whole nother issue. That's why I didn't really want to open the can of worms. But I think this paragraph right here says no permanent structure. A sign would be a permanent structure. And I think that a business has to be able to put a sign in that 30 feet, even though they may lose it to the highway eventually, and then they'd have to do something
Well,
else
we
with
have-
their sign.
We would have to
Put
play
it
with
to your
the
own
wording
risk.
of the paragraph, Julie, to include things.
Well, how do
But
you-
my thoughts was that traveling up and down in Albany, out by the interstate, there's 3 service stations with tanks right in the middle of the 30-foot setback, and that's what I was thinking of, okay? Not a,
Is there a
I
way,
thought
does
it was-
anybody
I
have
thought
a
it-
suggestion of how to
Let me-
fix that
let me-
well, I
paragraph?
don't know, we can make it very simple.
Just
Some-
say, accept signs.
Go ahead.
All right, ready for me?
Yeah, we're ready. I'm ready to write.
Okay, anything in that servitude will have to be removed at the owner's expense.
Has to be what now?
Removed at the owner's expense.
Removed when the highway buys the property?
Yeah.
Those signs are not that expensive to move, they're
No,
not.
that's what I'm saying.
But he's saying at the owner's expense, not paid for by DOTD.
The owner would have to be responsible to move anything in that servitude. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying.
I don't think
it would
that's,
be able to, I don't think
No.
that would fly.
I don't, and
think-
I don't like that.
One thing,
Because
okay.
it might, because it, you know, might be
It's
some
your
25
property.
years later.
Here's the thing, it's your
Yeah.
property, and you ought to be able to put your sign on that property.
Right. We're not,
And without it being too expensive, DOT would have to buy my sign,
Okay.
but that's not cost prohibitive. That's not gonna, make
It's not gonna make a
it
difference
twice
in
as
the
much.
that's not, that's gonna be a negligible cost really.
Correct.
As
Okay.
opposed to buying a $200,000
I
front of a
wouldn't trouble
building.
that.
So
I
how about,
don't know
how about
if it would
this?
fly with the council, but I
How
don't
about,
know.
how about this? No permanent structure above or below ground other than the business's sign. The sign of the business shall be located within the setback buffer zone.
Good. Could you text that?
How
to
do
me?
you like that? Y'all like
Could you
that?
Email me that,
I like it.
and I'll add it. So, all right, I'll tell you what.
Or you could just
Can you
add
say
where it
that
says
again?
buffer setback zones may be used for parking, underground utilities, drainage, signs, and green area.
The buffered setback zones may be used for parking, underground utilities, drainage, signage. The business's sign,
I would say,
owner's sign.
I would just say sign.
I would just say
Sign.
sign, I mean,
But
I don't know
if
anybody
we
who puts
want
signs
all
out front of their
signs,
house
yeah.
permanently, so it kind of.
I was thinking the same when he was talking about utility.
Here's a
and
couple more,
having
one more
use of the
thing.
property. It's like, you don't
Mr.
wanna-
Ross, last
you don't wanna
week
take
we had
away
a
the use.
question.
They own it, but they can't
Like-
use it because it might one day have to be sold.
Commercial establishment,
Yeah, because they lease,
Oh.
don't they lease that?
buffer
to-
zone set
I think
in
it's
the
might
back.
never get sold.
And I thought about it later, there is an ordinance addressing that.
That's a
And
good
it appears in the commercial ordinances and multifamily, but not mobile homes or residential. It just says, a minimum of 25 feet buffer zone shall be established and maintained between conflicting usage. If it's a resident, it's conflicting, if it's commercial, it's not.
Gotcha.
Look, it appears twice. And that's some little tidbit,
Carol, are you getting on to something else? Because I think we need a motion on this.
a motion
A motion,
To present it to the council?
yes, yeah, I'll make the
send it to the
motion.
council?
Yes, to the committee.
The ordinance committee.
Well, we can do that, but just remember, it's a living document, okay?
I
When
understand.
they get it, they might change
No,
it.
no, no,
Sure they will.
right.
That's their job.
You okay?
We'll present it.
Well, maybe a
Yeah.
motion to present it in this format with the changes that we
That,
talked
right,
about.
right, correct. All right, Derek, you want to make it, say the verb, say the,
Oh, I could, well, I gotta remember what all was said now. So I think, yeah, I mean, I'd motion we present it in this format with number 5, removing the size requirement, removing front of residence, changing it with, what did we say, on site, on property? And then, on the second to last paragraph, allowing signs in
By the
the
property.
buffer zone or in.
But the
yeah.
sign, by,
Or,
signs of the, owned by the property, not just anybody's
Yeah.
sign.
Right,
Go
right.
there.
The
It
business
needs-
can place a sign
Yes,
within the,
yes. Buffer
the
zone.
third, the
Yes.
buffer zone.
Yes.
Mr. Derrick, you said to remove
The
Size
requirement.
Turnaround,
the,
that 10 by
20.
20,
Remove the size requirement.
remove the size requirement.
the size
Just
of
leave
the
it as a safety turnaround
The
apron.
size of the apron you're talking about, right?
Right.
10 by 20.
And then remove front. It doesn't, it just has to be
Okay.
on the property.
And-
Okay.
And change residence to property.
I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. Okay, we got a motion, everybody understand the motion?
I will second that motion.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. Derrick Babcock and a second by Ms. King. Call for the vote.
Mr. Sadler?
Confirm, yes.
Yes. Mr. Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Mr. Kinchin?
Yes.
Mr. Babcock?
Yes.
Mr. Morrison?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Dyson Norris?
Yes?
Mr. Inman?
Yes.
All right, one more thing before we adjourn.
Did you get you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The precedent has been set on setbacks on any public road, on mining. It says number 3, operators must create and maintain a minimum 100-foot setback or buffer zone from any public road. So it's done there. Also, it also appears under the ponds, P-O-N-D-S, it appears there. Number 7, no pond shall be constructed within 30 feet from the edge of a state or parish right-of-way. So the precedent has been set.
Okay. Well, we're on.
And I want to say, I guess we need to apologize to our developer friends for not pushing widening roads and building roads in Lewisham Parish, even though we have worked real hard on Juban Extension and Juban widening. But on Florida Boulevard and other roads, we should have pushed for this 20, 30
That's
years
right.
ago.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
we want to build roads so our developer friends can build and
Have access to the property.
make
right.
money.
Then you wanna take 55 foot away from it.
Near road, take your front.
Just in the front.
But you can put your sign on it, Mr. Kenny. I mean, come
And
on.
you know, 55 feet is only from that corner to that.
All the way to Bubba.
All the way to Bubba Harris.
It's only that far.
I said something at the
You're
last meeting.
counting the things, it's like all the way to Bubba Harris.
I said something at the last meeting that I
I think
really
that's
believe
36.
in, that our group, I would like for us to pick one day every quarter or every other month to go out to eat together and establish a little camaraderie like we used to do in the old CIA days. We had fun. I would love to do that. So y'all,
Sandy, you can come too.
y'all, yeah, you
We're supposed to
too.
bring some money.
You too. I really, I want y'all
Sandy
to,
can bring it.
I really want y'all to think about
I'm
that.
going home.
Yeah.
I want y'all to think about that. Okay. All right,
Pick a
anything
place
else?
and tell us what time, Gerald.
Anything else?
No, motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.
Yes, thank you.
Thank y'all so much.